Some days it just ain't easy. Been trying to figure out how to make that happen so you guys don't have to sit here with nothing going on while I'm trying to get everything else set up. So play with it some more later. Oh man, how's everybody doing? Well, Jimbo, if you want to sit in silence, just turn it down. What is going on? All right. So I'm going to try one more thing here. I want you guys to tell me if you can hear the music this time when I play it. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. I don't know, but I'm going to try. Oh man, Big Vol Daddy, he just got started on his show, but I wanted to do a stream. Just kind of go over what all happened. Man, what a Saturday. Holy crap. He said, sing your Rocky Top song for us. Oh, what's going on, Keith? I got a new name for you, sir. Hey, tell me, can you guys, I think it's still going here. Let's see. Can you guys hear any music now? Can you guys hear that? No music. All right. Well, it is what it is. I'll figure it out later. So I watched a couple of YouTube videos on how to do it. And apparently I'm not doing it right. So screw it. All right. Moving on. All right. So let's go ahead and. Oh, I didn't know you could send that. Oh, cool. Okay. I'll learn something today. What's up, JC? Putting the link in the stream there for Keith. He was he said he would be willing to join the show again tonight. Get your grandson to fix the audio. I have no grandkids, sir, fortunately. Oh man. It has been such an interesting week. Lots to talk about. We'll talk about the Rocky Top song I made because that seems to be rather popular. We'll go over my picks for last week. Go over just kind of how the whole school board panned out for everybody. I mean, if you had to pick a day of college football to watch that you would have to label the most interesting, it would be hard pressed to find a more interesting Saturday than this last one we just had. I mean, it was absolutely nuts. Who'd be texting? Somebody trying to get me to play on a PlayStation. I'm busy, sir. And why are you not in my stream? Why are you not in my stream? We need you. We need you here. What is going on with this thing? All right, let's go. Schedule, standings, scores. There we go. Hey. What an interesting day. How is Florida ranked above Texas A&M? I honestly have not pulled up the rankings yet, sir. I kind of wanted to do that for the show, so we'll do that as well. But yes, it's 8 o'clock at night, and I'm drinking coffee. I'm kind of interested in how Alabama's still ranked above Georgia, to be honest with you. So we'll get into that. On a serious note, if you are or if you know someone who is currently a Tennessee Volunteer fan, please reach out to them in their moment of crisis and need. A lot of times these kind of conditions go unnoticed. Everything appears fine on the surface, but it can be really hard because everything you're supposed to act normal, but you're not okay. So if you know somebody, reach out to them, check on those guys. I think they're in a pretty dark place right now. Jimbo says, Husker Gray says, I'm sorry, but I'm not surprised Georgia isn't ranked higher. Last year, after all, y'all beat Notre Dame. Y'all didn't go up. It is what it is. What are you going to do? It will resolve itself this weekend. So, in a way, I'm kind of glad that they did not rank Georgia ahead of Alabama. I'm glad that they ranked Alabama ahead of Georgia, because then it's billboard material for the locker room. Landon says my dad's okay, but thanks for asking. Texas A&M only lost once, because Texas A&M has lost 2 games. Yeah, Dwayne says I don't care about rankings. You may care about those rankings whenever you're playing teams that are ranked. When you're playing teams that are unranked, you don't care. So let's go ahead and say hello to some folks in the stream. What's up, Jamar? What's up between the trenches? Dwayne RTR, one of our members of of the Big Dog Brett members only section. Thank you, sir, for supporting the channel. Jimbo Who Dat. I love that name, man. Bartholomew Bob, E-I-E-I-O. Dogs Natty Bound, enough said. Yeah. We'll see. Dorito Back says, I hope Georgia's ready for next week. Sarah Crane, welcome back to the channel, ma'am. It's always good to have you here. Keith is in the stream. Husker Gray here. Landon Gosnell, Evan Smith. I think that's everybody that's popped up in there. What's up, Kevin Drummer? Yeah, it'll all take care of itself. Do you see a W for the Bulldogs next week? I don't think any reasonable Alabama fan or reasonable Georgia fan would come out and say that they guarantee that their team's going to dominate. There's not enough on it there right now. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Keith into the stream here. How's it going, sir? All right, let me get this here. I need to fix something here. There you go. I got you straightened out now.
The mailman, there we go. Yeah, I apologize. My wife's out of town at Disney, so ain't shaved. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's all good, man. I didn't shave either, so I think it'll be okay.
Nice. I got to shave before about 6:15 tomorrow. That's when she's coming home.
Oh yeah, you good then, right?
Yeah, I got a little bit.
I trimmed a little bit. I kind of straightened it up a little bit because it was a little gnarly, but just gonna let it go for right now. All right, so let's just kind of run through the rankings here real quick. I don't know if you've got it pulled up or not. I've got it pulled up. I can tell you what it is. Then of course we'll go over the scores and we'll go through my predictions for last week, and then and as we go through the scores, that'll give us an opportunity to kind of sling mud and apply praise where needed. All right, so let's go ahead. Kirby is watching the Ole Miss game as we speak. I bet he is. I bet he's watched it twice. So let's go ahead and jump in here and talk about the rankings here real quick, and then we'll get into the scores here in a second. They've got Clemson at 1, Alabama at 2, Georgia at 3, and Notre Dame at 4. And then North Carolina at 5, and we'll start right there and kind of work it around. So what do you think about that mix there?
I don't have a problem with this ranking. I was really interested in what they were going to do with Georgia and Alabama. The Alabama game being as close as it was and going back and forth, there was going to be 2 ways to look at that, right? It was either going to be Alabama struggled against a team they shouldn't have struggled against, or it was going to be, that's the sign of a championship football team to overcome the challenge, blah, 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 that you always hear. I thought that game was a great game. And I don't have a problem with the ranking. I mean, that's gonna sort itself out next week. Not a big deal.
So for me, trying to be unbiased is difficult in this situation because there's, for lack of a better term, there's a lot of bad blood between Alabama and Georgia. Clemson's been on top. They've dominated everybody they've played against. Miami is clearly either the second or third best team in the ACC, depending on how you view North Carolina. I think they came out and they probably, in my opinion, played to their potential. But I think the depth at Clemson, the experience at Clemson, both in the coaching staff and on the field, was just more than what Miami could handle. And because of that, I feel like Miami, that was a fitting, I won't say end to their season, but that was a fitting game for what they actually have. I felt like it was pretty accurate. I felt like Clemson came out and played, I won't say overly aggressive. They played hard, but I don't think that they had laid all their cards on the table either. I don't think they were going for broke. Right. I think Miami was absolutely trying to play their behinds off, but they were just out talented.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised at that game. I mean, I say that I was kind of hopeful that was going to be a close game. You know, I'm really wanting Clemson to kind of get some competition in their own conference. You know, and I was hoping we were starting to see that. I was kind of, I guess artificially high on Miami a little bit going into that game. And about 5-10 minutes into that game kind of brought me back down to reality, I guess.
Yeah.
They were outmatched, like just completely on every side of the ball.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping, just for the sake of Miami fans, since they don't have their own stadium, at least they could have a good solid win, But unfortunately, I think Clemson came out and did what Clemson does. They still got good receivers. They don't quite have the receivers that they had, over the last couple of years, but they certainly have enough talent there to keep them rolling. Travis Etienne did exactly what you would expect Travis Etienne to do. He came out and he was really difficult to handle for them. So I am going to respond to Emma N putting Georgia 50, Alabama 10. That is absolutely ludicrous, sir. Nobody will be more excited about that than I, but I can tell you that's probably an impossibility. Now, I will say that I believe Georgia is the only team, and I may have to check against Clemson, but I think Georgia's the only team that has scored at least 20-plus points on every team it's played so far. As far as a gap between the teams they've played.
Yeah, based on what I saw, I wouldn't be surprised if Georgia scored 50. It's just is Alabama going to score 51?
Right.
I mean, it's funny. I was watching the Georgia game with a buddy of mine, a big Tennessee fan, so that was fun. But I had a conversation with him about Alabama. He was saying that.
Wait a minute. Was that before or after you sent him the video that I made?
This was after I sent him the video well before the game. This is during the game. He was saying, making the comment that we're not going to be able to do whatever XYZ, whatever play it was that we did. He's like, you guys aren't going to be able to do that next week. It's Alabama. And I was like, man, I don't know if you've watched Alabama this year, but Alabama has kind of moved on from this big vaunted defense. And they've went after these big offensive guys. So their games are a shootout now. And then we have the Ole Miss game, and it's kind of like, I had to text him. I was like, see, man, that's what I'm talking about. Well, I don't know. It's gonna be an interesting matchup with Georgia's defense against what Alabama's doing on offense. Very interesting.
If we roll back to the Missouri game, and the Bama fans that are here, you guys can attest to this. I said that there was no reason that Missouri should have scored 19 points against Alabama. That's an indication, at least to me, that there was a symptom there. What's going on, UGA boy? That there's at least a symptom there that there was a problem with the defense, and I think it reared its head against Ole Miss. Yeah. I think Lane Kiffin sat down and put together a really good game plan against Alabama and executed it well, but I think they made that one mistake downfield where they didn't finish that drive,
right?
And that kind of put them having to play more of a hurry up than they were capable of performing at that level by that point of the game. They were too far behind the chains and couldn't get back in it.
Yeah. And Kevin Drummer says if Georgia can hold Bama to 30 points or less, they can win. I completely agree with that. 30 was the point that I was saying too.
Yeah.
I'm hoping Georgia can put up 30 on them, but I think if we hold Bama to 30 points, we have to hold Bama to 30 points or less if we have a chance to win that game, in my opinion.
So I think that in that game, we'll have another discussion on Thursday about that game, but there's so many different aspects to how that game needs to be played in order for either team to win. I think that if Kendall Milton or Zeus, either one, can have a good game against Alabama, it's pretty much going to be Georgia's to lose. Yeah. The Georgia defense is absolutely phenomenal. We gave up 7 points off of a scrub snap. That game should have been 14 to 44 points, whatever it was we scored. That was just really, really unfortunate that they were able to score even 21 points. They had a 7-point gimme. So to me, the Georgia's defense is absolutely incredible. I have not seen a quarterback play against Georgia so far that wasn't scrambling for his life. And then I don't believe that Ole Miss has a defense as near as good as Georgia's. And there were times I was watching Mac Jones run for his life. So, yeah. But we'll get into that here in a little bit. I'm a little surprised to see Notre Dame pushed up to 4 when all they did is they played a horrible FSU team. I really think that Cincinnati at this point could probably give them a run for their money. I think Cincinnati is probably a better team, or even Oklahoma State is a better team than Notre Dame at this point.
I was going to say, you look at what Carolina did, I
think Carolina should be right ahead.
Virginia Tech team,
Mm-hmm.
It's that spot is, that after you get past 3, it is definitely interesting right now with the way they're choosing to move those people around. But it was only a matter of time before Notre Dame popped up into that top 4 spot.
Yeah. Well, let me throw some interesting things out here. You have an undefeated Louisiana Monroe, the Raging Cajun, excuse me. Then you got an undefeated SMU, an undefeated BYU, an undefeated Cincinnati, and an undefeated Oklahoma, and of course you got the top 5. But look at the teams that have already taken a loss. Texas has taken 2 losses. They're completely out of the top 25. Oklahoma's completely out of the top 25. So the front runner, unless I see something somebody else doesn't see out of the terrible trash can conferences right now, is Kansas State. Kansas State's 3-1.
Yeah. Well, all you got to do is look at one thing to tell you that this AP poll is just absolutely insane, right? They have Texas A&M ranked 11, and Florida ranked 10, one after each other. They just played, and Texas A&M beat Florida. So it's like, if you're going, I understand if you had Florida 9 and Texas A&M 12 or whatever, if you want, but if you're going to put them right next to each other, like 10 and 11.
You got to
put the winner above it. Exactly. Why do you not have Texas A&M above Florida? That right there is all you need to look at to see that this ranking is just absolutely
screwed. Yeah. I mean, wins have to mean something. And if I was a Texas A&M guy, I would be furious right now, because not only did you beat them, you have the same exact record.
Mm-hmm.
You're both 2-1.
Yeah.
It just makes no sense. That makes no sense whatsoever. Miami, and you remember we had this conversation. I said that if Miami lost, even if they kept it close, they might even stay around the 10 mark. Well, they got blown out, and they're still ranked 13th.
Yeah.
So Auburn, by the way, Auburn fans and Auburn, you guys should not even be in the top 25. I'm sorry. You guys stole that game. The referee stole it for you. Even the SEC commission came out and announced that, yes, it was a backward pass. That is exactly the kind of officiating that I have been complaining about all season, because it finally reared its head and cost somebody a game.
Yeah.
And I mean, and the implications behind that is that Auburn's already lost 1 game. It wasn't going to hurt or help Georgia either way if Auburn won or Auburn lost that game, because Georgia's beat both of those teams already. If Arkansas would have won, it would have made Georgia look good because they held Arkansas to such a low number. If Auburn wins that game, Georgia just beat them and held them to 6 points. So it doesn't help or hurt Georgia either way. Hey, what's going on, James? In my opinion, there's absolutely no reason that, if you're looking at it objectively, the referees got it wrong. It wasn't the play on the field that's giving you your rankings. It is the referee that gave you that ranking. You shouldn't even be in the top 25 because you lost to Arkansas, who's already lost to Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, this is another example of Arkansas. I think Arkansas is moving in the right direction. I mean, you knew Sam Pittman would have them ready to play, and I know everybody was memeing on Georgia on that game earlier in the year, but I don't think. I mean, we were the first ones that kind of come out and realize that hey, this team's here to play.
Yeah.
They're going to play. They're going to play tough. I'm not going to say that they're going to give Alabama or anybody like that a run for their money, but I mean, these guys are moving in the right direction. And so I was, I think it was hilarious that that game was as close as it was. I mean, for all intents and purposes, Auburn should have lost that game.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing I will say is that even though, I mean, neither one of these teams really are even going to be anywhere near the conversation of the college football playoffs. Neither one of these teams are going to have an argument to make at this time, as far as we can see, about getting in the SEC championship. But what this does allow is this is going to allow Sam Pittman to recruit at a much higher level.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because
he's already great at that anyways. I mean, he's I mean, I think their days of being a bottom dweller in the West are going to slowly come to an end. It's going to be interesting, that dynamic with Ole Miss and Mississippi State and Arkansas, that which one of them is, because all of them are really moving in the right direction. That the West is, I mean, it's always been tough, a tough side of the conference, but man, I mean that there's some good teams there, good coaching.
Good coaching. Yeah. And I mean, I think Lane Kiffin coming back in has I think he's taken that job very seriously. And I think he's absolutely proven that he has the football mentality and IQ to develop Ole Miss into a winning team again. Unlike some other coaches that we'll talk about here in a minute. So, all right, well, let's get in. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't know if you saw the story. I saw it a little bit earlier where Saban made the little sound bite wondering if Ole Miss had their defensive plays, their defensive alignments.
Yeah.
Yeah. He basically made a comment that everything that they did on defense, Ole Miss called the perfect offensive play against it, insinuating that they had the playbook. Plays. Yeah. Of course, he said, he said that it's no different than anything else. I mean, sometimes that stuff happens, so it's not a big deal. But he's like, they just lined up perfectly against our defense every time.
Well, let me ask you this question then. Let's be fair. Kirby Smart says all the time, especially when they ask him in a press conference, like, what is your game plan for next week? He was like, we're going to do this or we're going to do that. And it was like, do you think it's okay to invite these players to the practices and what? He goes, why? He goes, everybody knows what we do. Everybody knows what everybody else does. Exactly. It's no surprise. He's like, you see it on tape. We have 60 minutes of tape that we can watch as many times as we want to. You don't think that an experienced player, an experienced assistant coach for as long as Kirby Smart or any of these other coaches on staff have been there, Scott Cochran included, and experienced just staff, they aren't scouting these games. You know that they're writing these X and O's, and they see things we can't even fathom to see. Yeah. So when they start putting all that stuff down, they're saying, okay, they're running a spread. They're running a spread. Okay, they're running a nickel package. They're running a dime package. They look at that stuff and immediately know what it is. And they say, okay, 6 out of the 7 times they ran this package, they went to the right side. So what we're going to do is we're going to shift a linebacker over. And then they practice that in practice. And that's why you see that the leaders of the defense will walk up and grab a guy because he recognizes the formation, and then he pulls him over. He was like, you need to be over here, because when we did tape study, it went to this side 85% of the time. And if you've noticed, whenever Gary Danielson, which I can't stand, even said so in the show, he was like, notice how Georgia shifts. Whenever they call 55, the ball's going to the right, or they call 66, it's going to the left, and then the Georgia offensive line shifts. And they shifted right into this player. They shifted right into that play, and it screwed up Tennessee. This isn't rocket science. What are you talking about, Nick Saban?
Yeah.
They got your
I thought it was interesting. Yeah. I mean, and not only that, I mean, Lane Kiffin did the same thing to Florida. He just wasn't able to do it throughout the whole game. But if you watch that first half against Florida, he dialed up perfect plays against them. I mean, that game looked like Ole Miss is going to win it.
Well, I mean, if you look at Georgia's defense basically does that. That's what I'm saying, is that Georgia's defense, if you look pretty much every play, unless it is a busted, misconfused play, they got it nailed. So, Daniel Moore says he's not worried about Bama. We already played the best offensive line we will play all year in Tennessee. It's all downhill from there. They certainly have the best offensive line if you listen to any Tennessee fan before that game.
That's exactly what I heard too. My buddy was saying the same thing.
Remember the last time we had an elite defense and played the best offense, it was 37-10. That is correct, sir. But I have yet to see anybody who is even half the caliber of Joe Burrow so far this year. Now, he may be out there, but I hadn't seen him. Because when I watched Joe Burrow play, I sat there dumbfounded, just like the defensive coordinators that are making millions of dollars. But I don't see that against anybody else. I see players scrambling. I see defenses trying to tackle guys, which, by the way, I don't know why our defensive guys are so slow. We can get penetration, but we can't sack anybody as much as we should. We had 5 sacks on Garantano. But, golly, I bet you we chased him 30.
Yeah.
We rolled him out of the pocket at least 30 times. But yeah. I digress. So let's I'm going to kind of get into the picks here real quick. We're going to kind of go over. I started out with Louisville at Georgia Tech. So Louisville at Georgia Tech, I need to do the full scoreboard instead of just the part of the scoreboard here. Actually, we'll come back to that later. Was Texas. There it is. Okay. So the Texas-Oklahoma game, I picked Texas, so I got that wrong. But in my defense, Texas could have won that game early on. Texas was a favorite by 2. They lost by 8, and I picked the over on that game. So I got the over right, but man, I missed it overall. What was your thoughts on that game?
This game was one of those that you said the spread was 2 points. I didn't even get a chance to look at that beforehand, but that sounds about right. I mean, these teams are almost, mirror images of each other. They're, where they are in the season. People were really high on Texas coming into this year, and then here we are 2-2. And then Oklahoma, the pedigree that you have there, to see them at 2-2 is pretty weird. And then so the fact that they played to such a close game like that. In the overtime is not surprising. And if I had to pick that game, I figured Oklahoma would come. I'm not sold on Texas this year. I know everybody's high on them, but
I picked Texas because I figured that with the experience that Sam Ehlinger had, he should have been able to overwhelm Rattler. But
I think he's the only reason they were even in that game.
He is the only reason they were in that game. He's the only reason at all they were in that game. All right, so let's we'll come back and talk about Texas and we'll talk about Texas A&M and Florida here in a second. Let's talk about South Carolina and Vandy. Oh my goodness, what happened to y'all, man? This game, South Carolina finally decided to come out and play. There was people going into this game that questioned whether or not South Carolina was going to be able to do anything in this game, which I think rightfully so.
Yeah, I think this game may have saved Muschamp's job. I do. I really do. I think his seat was starting to get real hot, and if that game would have not, if they would have figured out some way to lose to Vanderbilt, I think it would have. I think that would have been the story this week.
So let me throw a curve at you here. What do you think happens if South Carolina comes out? Because, by the way, South Carolina scored 27 points against Tennessee, scored 24 points against Florida, and scored 41 points against Vandy. So they have an offense there of some type. Do you think it's enough of an offense to be able to stop Auburn next week?
Yeah, based on what I've seen against Auburn, I'm not real high on them. Like you said, South Carolina has been able to score points. I think it's going to be a good game, but I would not be surprised to see South Carolina win this game. Like you said, they're scoring points, and Auburn is giving up points. So
it's I think that Auburn is definitely. By the way, I'm part of some. I'm part of a few little boards that have commentary that you see from the Auburn fans, and you jump around some of the Auburn YouTube channels and you'll see it. They are not fooled. They know that Gus Malzahn should have lost that game. They don't care that they got a W. They feel like they should have been competitive, at least competitive against Georgia, and they feel like they should have blown out Arkansas, and they're not doing that.
Right.
If he rolls into town against South Carolina wins, they may go ahead and bite that buyout. Now, the thing he's got going for him is kind of what Mark Richt had going for him, consistent win record, with the exception that there's been years that he's beat Alabama. But now he doesn't really even have a whole lot of that going on because he hasn't beat Alabama, in the last 4 years or something? He's only beat Georgia once, and it didn't mean anything when they did. So,
I mean, this reminds me of just a few years ago when there was all the talk about, him being bought out, and it's a tough. You're right. I mean, it's a very good comparison to Mark Richt. I mean, it's hard to talk about firing a coach that has a winning season almost every year. And has been, in the talks for the SEC championship or playing in it. I mean, they played. I mean, when we won the SEC championship a couple of years ago, that we beat them. I mean, they had beat Auburn they had beat Alabama that year. So I mean, it's it's definitely tough, but it's but there's also it's also Gus Malzahn, man. I mean, I just couldn't imagine being an Auburn fan with that guy being my head coach, man.
Well, first of all, the interview that I had with him was awesome. I didn't understand anything he said, but I did enjoy the fact he was willing to join the channel. But he basically did exactly what I thought he was going to do, and he went in there and put on that headpiece, and it didn't give him any new ideas, and he got absolutely destroyed. So that was really tough. So LSU versus Mizzou. Thoughts? What's your thoughts on that?
Man, the fall off of LSU, man, it's crazy this year. Going into the year, there was a lot of talk about LSU was going to be, rebuilding this year. They lost a lot of people to the draft. But it's just it goes to show you, what Joe Burrows and a couple of players can mean to a team. I mean, we're talking about a tremendous difference between one year to the next. And it's weird that that they weren't more prepared going into a second year, like you see with some of the with like Alabama and Georgia. I mean, we kind of these schools kind of reloaded. Now, LSU is traditionally that way. So to see them, I know they lost some people, but to see them just collapse like that is crazy. And
well, I
their
think
defense, I mean, it's just, man.
I think
problem was.
I think the grand total, and I may be mistaken, but I think the grand total was at least like losing 23 players off of that last year's team. I mean, it was just, you want to talk about, it really seemed like they put all their eggs in a basket and they hit it out of the park. It was like one and done.
Right. Yep. That's exactly right. It's like a team. It's like a professional team that just bought a bunch of 1-year contracts, won the championship, and and then dismantled the team.
And here's the crazy thing. So Miles Brennan in this game, which didn't go to overtime, he threw for 430 yards.
Mm-hmm.
That is insane. He's basically, he threw for 430 yards, 4 touchdowns. You look around and you go, how in the hell did we lose this game? You got one receiver with 11 catches and 235 yards in one game. And then you got another guy with 18 carries and 120 yards rushing. And you still lose the game to Missouri. Right? If you was in a shootout, right? If you'd have told me you were in a shootout with Oklahoma or Texas and you lost the game 45-41, you passed for 430 yards and 119 on the ground, I'd have been like, okay, yeah, it was a track meet. I get it. But Missouri? My goodness, you got absolutely hammered by probably the worst or second worst team in the West.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's I think you're finally starting to see this Big 12 offense start to rear its head in the SEC. It's you look at this game, you look at the Alabama Ole Miss game, you look at what Mississippi State's doing. I mean, it's at least the West has bought into this.
Is it, and help me out here, is it a possibility that maybe, just maybe, UGA is the last holdout for wanting to play old school defense? And because of that, it is helping us garner more 4- and 5-star players.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that it's necessarily helping us. I mean, certainly on the defensive side of the ball, it's allowing us to recruit those guys. I mean, you want to come to a team where you can play smash mouth defense like Georgia does. You look at what LeCount does. You look at, Eric Stokes with another pick this week.
Yep.
LeCount with a couple of good hits this week. I mean, we play a physical style of defense and always kind of have. We've always wanted to, even back when our defense was kind of terrible. The reason it was terrible was because our guys wanted to hit. They didn't want to wrap up. They wanted to, they meet somebody 3 or 4 yards down the field and they wanted to blow them up. They didn't want to wrap them up. And I even made a point in the Georgia game that the targeting call, I think, I know a lot of people hate the targeting call, but I think one of the side effects that we've seen of the targeting call is an increase in fundamentals on open field tackling. You saw it in the Georgia game. There were a couple of plays. One in particular, I can't remember who made the stop, but they met the Tennessee player in open field. It wasn't by within 5 yards of either one of them, and he hit him in the waist with his shoulder. He aimed center waist with his shoulder, wrapped him up, tackled him. Yep. I'm like, if this is Georgia 5 or 6 years ago, he's going to try to blow that guy up, and he might blow him up, but 9 times out of 10. They're going to spin off of them or stumble and then pick up another 3, 4, or 5 yards and get out of bounds.
Pick up that first down and
pick out the first down. Exactly. So I think the targeting rule, has forced defensive coaches to coach even more fundamentals and tackling to do it the correct way without getting penalized. And I think you're seeing it, and it's allowing Georgia to play a real physical style of defense without getting a lot of targeting calls. And we're going to get them. That's why I wasn't that upset about the LeCount call last week. I want him to keep making that play.
Absolutely. And the other reason that you want him to make that play is for the what's going on, Crimson Brave? I don't know why you're yelling at me, but how you doing, sir? The reason I want Richard LeCount making that play or similar plays to it is that way anytime a receiver cuts across the middle, it's in his mind that I'm probably about to get absolutely hammered.
Right.
And that makes guys want to turn that head just a touch too soon, and it makes them drop passes all the time. So, yes, I want that play there. I don't want anybody to get hurt. What's going on? What's going on, Sea-Dog West? How you doing, sir?
You saw one of the Tennessee receivers, I can't remember who it was, that caught that pass and just got over the middle and got blew up, and he held onto it for a first down. That was a beautiful play on both.
Yeah.
Because I remember telling my buddy, I was like, man, that's a beautiful play on both sides of the ball. He held onto the ball, got the first down, and our defensive guy just laid the wood on him. And, that's one of those where you just get up and just look at each other and say, good play, man. That's really all you can do.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm pretty sure I remember the same play because I looked at my wife and I was like, man, he earned that one.
Yeah.
Like he earned it. Play. So, if it's like that all game, which it's not going to be, but when I see – I'm gonna be John Madden right now. When I see good players making good plays, that's good football. Yeah. And that's exactly what that was. There was a couple of times where there was some pass interference stuff that didn't get called that should have been called.
The officiating in that game was terrible. You had first of all, the targeting call against Tennessee. I'm just not a fan of making that call. And, it's one thing if you're going to launch into the guy. I believe he should have got a personal foul. I think they got it right before they went back and reviewed it. The guy rushed Stetson. Stetson got the throw off, and he didn't launch into him. He just kind of headbutted him, gave him a little tap with the helmet, and that should have been an unnecessary roughness call or roughing the passer, whatever you want to do, 15-yard penalty. I mean, when we start getting into calling that targeting, man, that really opens up interpretation right there.
Yeah, I, in my opinion, calling it targeting is what I would call a ticky-tack or call. I think it was a little bit silly, especially because you ejected that player out of the game. Yeah. But the thing
that's one of their best defensive players too.
Yeah, you should. It should have just been, hey, personal foul, unnecessary roughness, quarterback, whatever you want to call it, and then 15 yards, automatic first down. I guarantee you the moment that player would have got to the sideline, you would have had one or more of those coaches up his behind. Yeah. Man, don't do stupid stuff like that. That's like George Pickens with the freaking water bottle. How stupid was that? Yeah. I mean, I get it that you're fired up, but it's only Tennessee, man.
Yeah, this is going to be get into the Pickens thing. That's going to be his downfall, man.
Yeah, attitude.
I like it. I want you to be a gamer. But man, you got to keep it. You got to do it the right way, man. That's Bush League, man.
Yeah,
big time.
Hold on 1 second. Devin Dawson, Auburn Eagle Tigers Plainsman War something. He says Big Dog Gus. It's Big Dog Brett. Big Dog Gus beat Bama 2 out of the last 3, not 4 losses in a row. Thank you for the information, sir. I did not know that, but I don't think you're going to beat him this year. So it's going to be 2 out of the last 4. Okay. So, yeah.
But getting back to the officiating, the touchdown that Tennessee scored, that they had to go back and review where he got the foot down.
There was no need to review that. It was clear as day.
He was staring at the guy's foot. I mean, that was so. I agree. The officiating in that game was really, really suspect.
I'm just glad that our game didn't come down to the officiating. And I know what they say, don't leave it in the hands of the officials. But sometimes, man, you got no choice. It's not like you went out there and said, hey, I can't wait to leave this in the hands of the officials. There were some really bad calls.
Is that true? Is Quinn fired already? I was thinking it was going to happen Monday or Tuesday.
Did I miss something?
I hadn't seen that. Right. I've been looking.
Who posted something? Right now? What did I miss?
Jaquan Holdman says that breaking news that Dan Quinn's fired from the Falcons.
That would not surprise me.
Yeah, I figured it was coming. I just didn't know they would do it tonight. Figured it would be tomorrow.
Let's see. Falcons expected to fire Coach Dan Quinn after starting 0-5. That was 2 hours ago. Report Dan Quinn firing all but finalized.
Yeah, that's all I've heard so far. I haven't heard anything concrete yet.
Yeah, and everything here is 3 and 4 and 5 hours ago. Maybe it just popped though.
Yeah, all over Twitter, it's basically saying it's going to happen Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, Twitter's actually, believe it or not, there's as much misinformation as there is on there. There is good information on there.
It's all you follow.
Yeah, it's just you got to know what to pick out. It's tough, man.
What's up, C-Dog?
Remember when Saban said they ran through us like shit through a tin horn? I did not hear that.
That sounds like something Saban would say.
It does sound like something he would say. I can't imagine what he's thinking right now. I do think though that the Lane Kiffin getting a little jabby with him about the comments about not being able to cover him now has a little more legitimacy.
Yeah. But one of the things that I don't know if you want to get into the Georgia game. Go ahead and get into the Georgia game. But man,
let's run through this other stuff here real quick. Obviously I picked LSU to win. I was wrong on that. I also picked the under. I was wrong on that. And by the way, everybody in America was wrong on that. Texas Tech versus Iowa State. This was a game where I picked Texas Tech. It was 64.5 points. I picked the over. This was another weird game. I picked Tech on the money line. Iowa State came out and just drubbed them up the field. Arkansas versus Auburn. I actually picked Auburn. I actually picked Arkansas to win that game. The over-under was 46.5. I picked the under. Obviously, that was a miss, but I got Arkansas right, and I'm going to brag on that till the day I die. Kansas State. Let me see if I can find the score to the K-State game. Where's it at? K-State versus TCU. What was the score to that game?
I'm not sure.
I'm trying to pull it up right now. K-State versus TCU. 17-24. I picked K-State. 50.5 was the over-under. I picked the over, but I did pick K-State to win that game, and they did. So that was 2 upsets that I picked right. Mississippi State versus Kentucky. Let's see here. Anybody know what that was?
Yeah, I don't have the scores in front of me.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. 13-28. I picked Mississippi State on that on the money line, so I got that one right. Clemson and Miami, I obviously got that one wrong. The over and under was 62. I picked over. I figured Miami could keep it within 14. Obviously, that didn't happen. They stagnated in the first quarter, and then right after the half, they couldn't really get going. So yeah, Bama and Ole Miss. I picked Ole Miss, but the points was I took Ole Miss and 23.5 points, so I win. Because Bama couldn't make it to 71, so I won that one. And then Notre Dame versus FSU, I picked Notre Dame, and so I got that one right. The over-under was 52. I took the over, so I got that one right as well. So overall, if I'd have bet every game, I think I would have missed 3 or 4, but I would have got the rest right. So I'd have made a little bit of money. What's going on, Dunbar? Jermaine Dunbar Trucking. Thank you, sir, for being one of the members of the channel. By the way, those of you that are in here, you know the drill. There's a join button down below if you'd like to be a member. We are at 8. We're trying to get to just 10. We would appreciate it. Okay. All right, let's take a look here. Okay. So you ready? You ready to get into it? Do you want to do Texas A&M in Florida? Or do you want to do Georgia?
We can quickly do Texas A&M in Florida. I mean,
okay.
That was,
Obviously, I picked Florida, but I laid the points. So I obviously got that one wrong, as did most everybody in the United States. I picked the over, which I did get right. But, man, what happened? What's your opinion on this one?
Man, that game is like a blur to me. I watched it right before the Georgia game. That one, man, I mean, I think it was just a collapse by Florida in the fourth quarter. I think they gave up 17 points in the fourth quarter in that game. Yep. The most points, in a single quarter that Texas A&M had scored all day. And Kellen Mond balled out 3 touchdowns. I mean, it is. But I think the story of this game was Isaiah Spiller, though.
There it is.
Every time I turn my head, this dude was running 20 yards down the field, just running over people. I mean, this guy.
So I know that you probably don't have the stats pulled up in front of you, but I do. I want you to take a guess at how many yards he ran for in that game.
I remember when we were watching the game that I made the comment that if not careful, he's going to have 200 yards. So I'm guessing he's somewhere around north of 150, around 150, 165.
This man with 27 carries and 2 touchdowns ran for a total of 174 yards.
Yeah. Yeah, I figured I had a feeling he was getting close to 200 because I remember it seemed like every time they touched the ball, it was 5-10 yards. He was just – the Florida had no – I mean, it wasn't just him, though. I mean, he was the predominant rusher from remembering that game. But it seemed like in the second half and mostly in the second half of the third quarter into the fourth quarter, like Texas A&M just realized that Florida couldn't stop the run at all. And so they just pounded it and pounded it pounded it. And well,
you remember when I texted you, I was like – I said I think Texas A&M just found how they're going to beat Florida.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, Florida had no answer. And, I don't know if this was just Florida overlooking Texas A&M, or if Texas A&M just exposed Florida for not having a run defense.
You know what really cost Florida the game though, right?
What's that?
It's that crowd noise.
Yeah, they couldn't hear. Exactly.
First of all,
and they actually complain about that, about the crowd noise.
Yeah, Jimbo. Dan Mullen complained about it in his post press conference. He was like, "Yeah, they had way more people in there. They lied about how many people they had. I mean, it was like he even went so far as to say, "Is I really hope that the university lets us pack the swamp next week because our governors made the law where we can pack the swamp." And the university come back and told him, "No, you're not doing that."
Well, pack the swamp. The problem is don't practice. Don't practice with the anticipation of being able to hear the snap count and hear yourself on offense. You should never do that in football.
Yeah, well, the week before, whenever they played South Carolina, there is a decibel rating that the SEC has set for piped in crowd noise. So they were paying it. Hey, C-Dog, man, I really appreciate you joining and being our newest member here. Thank you, sir. Much appreciated. The SEC has set a level as to how much and how loud the crowd noise can be in the games. So Florida was doing the same thing last week, and now that A&M does it, they piped in there. By the way, do you know how many people they normally have in there? For those of you who don't know much about Texas A&M, it's called the home of the 12th man for a reason.
Yeah.
That place is crazy loud.
Yeah, they get those daggone cowbells going too.
Oh my God. Christopher Walken. He's the guy with the cowbell. And he comes in to the home of the 12th man. See, I don't like how you're talking about my fans here. See, you got to understand that whenever Christopher Walken says more cowbell, he's talking about Texas A&M. That place is crazy loud. And you just had piped in crowd noise. You didn't have the ground shaking like that place normally does. Any player who has played there will tell you that.
Yeah, and in that game. Yeah, in that game it would have been loud too. You can bet that game would have been loud. That's one of the things, that's kind of, I guess we're kind of missing this year. Because I know we got the piped in crowd noise, but man, some of these games that we've seen this year, imagine if we'd have been able to hear the crowd.
Oh yeah,
and the cameras be able to pan the crowd with some of these games. That Texas A&M Florida game. Hell, the Alabama game, that would have been. I know Alabama ended up winning that game, but man, that was not having fans at that game is a travesty for both fan bases.
For everybody involved.
That was a heavyweight boxing match, man.
That will be a classic game that they'll play for years, I'm sure, even though it's not a championship game. That was a shootout like Alabama has not seen in forever. I think the Georgia-Alabama game was a lot like that. But, man, it was just a great game. Yeah. So to talk about the lack of leadership that Dan Mullen showed, first of all, he never should have went in there and blamed the crowd noise. He should have went in there and said, we weren't ready. We underestimated him. We didn't take it seriously. We were looking forward to whatever, He did come in and say, well, we got to look at personnel. You're 3 or 4 games into the season. You haven't looked at personnel yet? What are you doing? Whenever you played against South Carolina and that game went the way it went, you should have made adjustments then. I think they overlooked Texas A&M. Thanks, Sarah. They overlooked Texas A&M. They didn't take them seriously. I said at the beginning of the season, Kellen Mond was an incredible player. He did kind of let us down early in the season as far as what I think his talent level is, but he absolutely showed out in this game. Absolutely showed out. And Florida, in true Florida fashion, in my opinion, they thought they were just owed this win. And Texas A&M had something to say about it, and they went out and played lights out. So, hats off to Texas A&M for saying, "No, we're not gonna take it." Yeah, and they just went in there and just absolutely showed out.
This is a Texas A&M team that was held to 17 by Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Put up 41 on Florida.
So there is one more kudos I want to give to Texas A&M. They only had 6 receivers, like only 6 people that they passed the ball to all game. And they had 338 yards in receiving, right? But every single receiver they had averaged more than 10 yards per catch. That is phenomenal. So when you've got somebody who big dogs say War Eagle, I don't know if you have enough money for that, sir. When you're looking at a team like Texas A&M coming out there and playing that well, dug themselves out of a hole, they were losing, and then they literally, it's very rare to see it happen, but you see a team develop its identity in the middle of a game, and that's exactly what happened here. Just awesome to watch.
Yep.
Okay, so let's all right, you want to have we beat up on Alabama enough yet, or do we need to get off that road?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't know. You know,
I think,
like I said, I think it's just this is a no defense Alabama. So
yeah,
they're,
I do have to point out one thing though. Here, let me find it because I want to make sure I get the number right because somebody will correct me.
Their offense is phenomenal though.
The offense is killer.
Are incredible.
Offense is killer. But they gave up something like 650 yards of total offense to Ole Miss.
Oh yeah, I think that game set a record for the most combined yardage.
Yeah, it's like it was well over 1,200.
Yeah,
so,
it was crazy.
I hope it's that way next week.
Yeah, no, just one sided.
Just one sided. That's all. All right. So, all right, Georgia, Tennessee. Where do you want to start?
Well, I think the game kind of went, I guess, very much like I had anticipated. I think we talked about on the stream last week. I made a point that I thought the game was going to be close through halftime, and Georgia's depth would allow us to pull away. And I think that's really, really what happened. I mean, Tennessee got the 7-point spotted to them run off the rip. That was unfortunate. And then really the only thing that they really done the rest of the game was hit the 2 big plays that scored touchdowns for them. And so, and Georgia really couldn't get a lot going in the first half, but in the second half, I think our ability to rotate out on defense and just keep the pressure on them, it was kind of, I was kind of surprised actually at how much pressure and how much, how much our defense was able to just lean on them in that second half. And it really started to affect their quarterback.
So one of the things that I noticed between when we played against Auburn versus when we played against Tennessee is that the game mentality changed. In Auburn, it was get up quick and then grind clock. And that's what we did. We put the game away. But during the Tennessee-Georgia game, it was, okay, we're going to come out in the second half and we're absolutely going to steamroll this thing and put it away. And to be able to see a team make that much of a shift in mentality was awesome. Watching there at the end of the half where Georgia goes out, hats off to Tennessee, they get a goal line stand. I feel like there were some bad play calls made there. I think a sweep would absolutely seal the deal. I understand trying to jam it up the middle, but I think there was more than enough room on that edge there. We could have got in. I think 3 or 4 plays straight in a row right there, wasn't the way to go. What I did like is that Kirby Smart looked at his team and looked at his defense and said, "Hey, I'm gonna put some faith in you. Try to go get these 7s. The defense has got us. Yeah, I understand we're losing. The defense has got it. Go do your thing." And they did. And when they come back out, it was the Stetson Bennett show, and off and away we went. I have never been more impressed, with the exception of Blinky, with a walk-on than I am with Stetson Bennett. He's able to read the pocket well. I think he got sacked one, maybe twice. He's able to escape. He stands in the pocket and he looks concrete-footed.
Yeah.
Until it's time not to be.
But like I said, he's an athlete. I mean, just like we said in the Auburn game, he anticipates the pressure and is able to rotate out and outrun guys. I mean, I remember the one play in particularly where he just completely outrun the defensive guy that was coming around the edge on him, ran for a first down. And so, this is kind of going back to what we were saying about these plays are plays that Fromm never was able to make,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he didn't have the intuition or the wills or both of them to kind of to make those plays. And that's that going back to that stand at the end of the first half, I felt like that's what we should have done, right? I mean, they kept wanting to run Zamir White right at the middle. And I understand wanting to kind of impose your will on the defensive line, but at some point, you got to just use your athletes, right? On that second or third down, we should have faked the dive play to Zamir and then just ran Stetson to the pylon.
Well, there was
the far pylon. And he could have cartwheeled into the end zone.
Well, he's obviously done it. He did it in that game, but Stetson has better wheels than what people think, and he's caught more than a couple of guys off balance with that. He ran 1 2-point conversion in, so we obviously know he can do it from the goal line. I don't know why we didn't run that play again.
Yeah.
But I think he's got the wheels to do it. Sarah Crane says, I'm not kidding when I say UGA is coming. It might not be as fast as UGA fans would like, but it's coming. Eventually, Sarah, I think Nick Saban is going to end up coming to work for Georgia because we've hired all of the other Alabama coaches so far. So I'm just kidding.
I think this game had a few little points in it where I think you could kind of see Kirby Smart and Pruitt's relationship not being the rosiest.
Mm-hmm.
I think going for it on fourth down early in the game on our side of the 50 was just – that was a boneheaded play, but that was I'm the man and I can do whatever I want kind of play. And it
backfired on him, exactly.
Yeah, that was a stupid play. That was another fake punt Justin Fields moment, in my opinion. That was stupid. And those kind of plays can directly affect a win or a loss in a game.
Mm-hmm.
They got points off of that.
Yep.
That was one of their big plays was right after that. So I'm just not a fan of that kind of stuff. And then getting down there on the four plays at the end of the half, he was so intent on running Zamir up the middle, just because I guess, I don't know, it was an arrogant thing. I don't know what that was, but everybody like I said, I even had a Tennessee fan next to me. He's like, why don't y'all go to the outside, man? Y'all have been, not only would it have been a free play, if you watch the rest of the game leading up to that point, we were killing Tennessee to the corner. They didn't
have enough speed to get over there.
Burton had already ran like 40 yards or something like that. We had already been killing them on the corner the whole game. So it was a deliberate attempt to just run the ball up the gut on them. So it felt like that Florida series all over again. Where we had was it Florida where 7 plays in a row we couldn't get it in. It was really, really reminiscent of that.
So it was almost 4 minutes at the goal line. On the clock, and we couldn't punch it in. C-Dog West, I'm going to get to you in just a second. Jimbo, the reason his helmets look so big is because some quarterbacks use helmets that have more padding in them, more cushion or whatever, so it makes it sit up higher. Some kickers have the same thing. UJ is not hiding Carson Beck. No, sir. That. First of all, Kirby Smart doesn't know how to hide anything. Second, C-Dog West, why wouldn't you in the fourth quarter, we're up 23 points, put Carson in, pull Stetson out? He has a job. He has done his job.
Okay, I can answer that question.
Go ahead.
Because Kirby wanted to score points. You look at, even when we brought Mathis in, I think it was Mathis when the game was put away. There was only like 3 minutes or so. We threw a pass to the end zone from like the 25 or 30 yard line. We ran an end zone passing play when that game was already out of hand. So I was going to get to that when I was talking about, plays that kind of showed their relationship. I don't think these two guys like each other. I just don't. And
I know, Jimbo.
I was pretty surprised to see, Kirby throwing for the end zone when we should have been it was in mop-up duty.
Yeah,
And
it
I
was
like, wow,
grind clock time.
Yeah, that was very interesting. But yeah, I was kind of surprised not to see JT Daniels.
I still don't think JT Daniels is ready.
Yeah, you might be right on that. I mean, maybe there's no point, I guess, in trying to force the issue with him if medically we're not 100% sure on him. But man,
I think that while he is cleared, I don't think he's ready. And I think that the reason that they're not going to put him in and risk re-injuring him right away if there's no need. I mean, if a quarterback goes down and you need him to go in, fine, you need him to go in. I think Kirby Smart's a little shaky on throwing Mathis back in there because Mathis reminds me of you remember in the Water Boy where he's fisting to the onside kick and he's like, all right, which one's my oh yeah, you, and the guy sitting there like this. To me, that's DeJuan Mathis when you hand him the ball.
Yeah.
What's going on? So to me, that's what I see when I see DeJuan Mathis. I'm like, dude, you got to settle down, man. Yeah. I think the reason they left Stetson in, it was trying to score points. I agree with that. But I also think that Todd Monken is absolutely taking the Alabama game seriously, and he wants to give Stetson every single snap he can and give him as much possible actual game time as he can to make him feel as comfortable as possible. Because I'm sure the conversation's been had, Stetson, this goes sideways, man. We're going to need you to hold it together because you saw what we got over here on the bench, man. So you're gonna get in there and develop some relationships with these receivers and running backs. You get your ass back in there. That's my opinion.
Well, you take the fact that at no point leading up into this season or any other season over the entire time Stetson's been on the roster has he been projected to be a starter.
Mm-hmm.
So limited reps with the ones, like you said, coming into this season. I mean, this guy was forced into being a starter without the team or him even being ready for it. I mean, I know he would probably say he was been ready for it.
Oh yeah, it's exactly what he's gonna say.
It looks like he has been, so I give him credit for that. But nobody on the Georgia coaching staff or any of the players or anybody, thought that this guy was going to be a starter. So I think you're 100% right on that. I think the reason that you're not seeing Stetson taken out in these games is pure reps. It's to get him reps with the ones. And game time reps are the best reps. I mean, you can simulate games, you can run, you can run spring games, you can do all of these things, but having reps when you got another team out there that doesn't know what you're trying to do, that is trying to get to you, trying to stop you. I mean, that's valuable. Even in mop-up duty, it's still valuable to get out there and play. Get out there and have a chance to show what you got.
So I was reading a forum and I saw somebody who I think made a very interesting analogy, and he said the difference between playing in practice and playing in a game is like playing Russian roulette with a loaded gun and an unloaded gun. He said it's that big of a difference.
It's like racing. It's like racing a racing video game, right?
Yeah.
There's things you're gonna do in a racing video game that you'd never do if you're behind the real steering wheel.
That's right. 65's fast enough on this curve. Racing game, 120 sideways. Look at I'll restart. Yeah. So absolutely. This man, what else here?
Oh, Kendall Milton. I gotta talk about Kendall Milton. I'm really high on this guy. I was high coming in this game. Every time he touched the ball, it was electrifying. I've constantly said that Georgia fans, I think, have been spoiled. They're expecting Zamir White to be the second coming of Chubb, Gurley, and Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
He is not. He's a good back. That would be a great back on any other team, but for some reason, Georgia just has these unrealistic expectations of our running backs after what we've had.
Is that similar to the Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma and the quarterback?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's fair. Oklahoma, I mean, historically has Heisman caliber quarterbacks there. So I mean, that's definitely a fair assessment. If you're a fan, you're kind of used to these things, and so the fact that Zamir White, they try to run him up the middle, and it's clear that that's just not the kind of runner, in my opinion, that Zamir White is. He's a great back. But getting back to Kendall Milton, I do see, and I may be way higher than I should be on him, but I do see shades of these backs. You know, I do see Chubb in this kid. I do see Gurley in him. He falls forward. He absorbed the hit. He always finds a way to move the ball forward.
So have you seen that? Have you seen that meme that's been flying around?
No.
About Coach Riley? Y'all got any more of them transfer quarterbacks? I saw that floating around, man. I was like, I got to put that on the show, man. That's great right there. I will tell you that, yes, I was certainly impressed with Kendall Milton. I've been wanting to see him play. He was absolutely the workhorse that we needed him to be. On roughly 1/3 of the carries, he had more yards than Zeus.
And if you watch that game, those carries were not easy. I mean, he was running over people.
Yeah, he was like running.
His yards after contact was crazy. I mean, he was hit at the line just about every time and just dragging people. That's kind of what I was saying about falling forward. He's one of those running backs that you see in the NFL that just, even when you hit them, they find a way to get 2, 3, 4 yards. They're going to go upfield.
Yep. C-Dog West, man, really appreciate you joining and being a member. Really, really appreciate it. There'll probably be some more to the show you can watch in the morning, but thank you so much for joining the stream, and thank you so much for becoming a member and helping support the show. It really means a lot to me. Thank you. I'm gonna point out another guy here, Kenny McIntosh.
Oh yeah, I mean,
oh my goodness. So Kenny McIntosh had just as many carries as Kendall Milton. And he had 45 yards, which was just 5 less than Zeus. I think that this guy is another guy who has a really high ceiling. Kenny McIntosh is another guy who's been on the team for years. He's played behind every running back at Georgia for a long time now. We see Kenny McIntosh come in, and it's like, he played in 2019 a little bit. He had 25 total attempts and 174 yards total. You looked at Kenny McIntosh and you went, why don't we run that guy more often? Because he was a good back. But I think that this year he certainly has an opportunity to make himself known. I think that he's going to be able to get it going. What's going on, Dave Johnson, man?
And I saw coming in, I think we'd had this conversation too, coming into that game. Kearis Jackson was sitting at 219 yards. He picks up 91 more, so he's at an even 300 now.
Yeah,
averaging 100 yards a game.
Yep.
3 games, 300 yards. We're playing 10 games this year. We're going to have our second 1,000-yard receiver ever.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, certainly if we can get him, 500 or 600 yards against Alabama, it'll help that along.
Yeah. There's no reason why he shouldn't have 100.
He absolutely. Kearis Jackson. First of all, since we have Kearis Jackson, why in the hell do we still throw the ball to Matt Landers?
Yeah, I don't know.
How many catches do you think Matt Landers had last night?
The only time I ever remember him being targeted was the one time that he about got destroyed.
0. He had no catches in that game. Here's a really funny stat. Trey Hill has 0 receptions, but 3 yards receiving. I don't know how they worked that out. George Pickens, which is supposed to be, WR1 here, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 deep on total receiving yards, tied with Demetrius Robertson for 14. Jermaine Burton and Kenny McIntosh both had two receptions. Jermaine had 26 yards. Kenny McIntosh had 36. So Kenny McIntosh, I think, is second place with the overall yards in the game. Got to see Trey McKitty a couple of times, man. 2 big passes, one for 28 yards, and the other one, I think, for like 19 yards. So some big receptions from him. But Kearis Jackson, man, averaging 23 yards a catch. 33-yard was the longest one. 91 yards total, like you said. Kearis Jackson just coming out of nowhere, dude. And just
wow. he's got great hands. He puts himself, he positions his body and shields the defenders and makes a great catch. He I don't know if he's benefiting from them focusing a lot on Pickens. I don't see that. I didn't really see that in the game last night. Or Saturday night. He just seems to catch everything that's thrown at him. He's one of these guys that Georgia just hasn't seen in a while. I know Pickens was this way, but we just haven't we haven't made Pickens as vital a part of the offense yet. I'm not really sure why that is. Supposedly he's got special talent, but man, seeing what Kearis Jackson can do, if we could get Pickens going too,
So to me, I would love to see. Now there's been a lot of talk. And for whatever it's worth, Trey McKitty has been getting a ton of talk. This is his first game back. He had an injury. That he's supposedly a magical player as well. If you could get George Pickens, Demetrius Robertson, Kearis Jackson, and then I'll let you take a pick between Trey McKitty, John Fitzpatrick, which I love that guy.
Yeah, I love Fitzpatrick.
And Dejon Edwards, get any of those guys going. Jalen Carter, I'll take him too. Any of those guys, get them going. And that offense will be absolutely unstoppable.
Yeah.
Let's jump over to the defensive side here. Fumbles, man. Fumbles. Kendall Milton got a little bit of fumbleitis there. I think we can get that recovered. Jermaine Burton, I think he's also had a little bit of that fumbleitis. But I can assure you that is going to be coached up. Jermaine Burton, this is his freshman year. This guy's actually out of California. I think that they'll get that worked out of him. I think he'll be fine.
I agree. I agree with what Rich is saying. I think Pickens. They've been doubling Pickens, which has been giving Kearis a chance to open up. That's why I think once people start having to pay attention over to Kearis Jackson, once people start actually rotating over, it's going to be
you can't double up everybody.
It's going to be really tough on the defense. It's because you start dropping back too much help on these guys, and you're going to have Kendall Milton right out in the middle on you. It's kind of tough. It's kind of interesting to be in this situation at Georgia with the offense, having all the weapons that we have, and actually having a quarterback that we feel comfortable in getting the ball to these guys. I never felt that way with Fromm. I always thought there was something in the water. That something was going to mess up, or he's not going to. There's no deep ball. There's no threat of the deep ball. We've seen Stetson, I think, throw the deep ball more this season so far than we saw from all of last year.
I still think that something had to have happened to Jake Fromm. I don't know if it was an undisclosed injury. I don't know. It was just so incredibly strange how his performance dwindled.
Yeah.
And we have, and people say it was the receivers. Ladies and gentlemen, 4 of those people that we had in our receiving core went pro. The other 4 that we had in the receiving core, which are still here, is 1 5-star and 3 4-stars. He had plenty of weapons to throw to.
Well, if you go back and look at the actual game film, these guys were open. It wasn't like it is this year. There was definitely some learning there with a lot of these new receivers, a lot of these freshman receivers, with Blaylock and Pickens and all these guys coming in last year. So I get that, but as a quarterback, especially one of Fromm's pedigree, or what we think, or what we've been told by the analysts that we have, this is a guy that should be able to get the ball in these tight spots. As I'm going to tell you something, the one thing that I've always knocked on Fromm is it seems like he had a confidence problem. And maybe it did stem from an injury or whatever, but he always seems like he has a confidence problem. And one of the main differences I think between what we see with Fromm and what we see with Stetson Bennett is confidence. Stetson Bennett feels like he can make any throw on the field. He doesn't feel like it. He knows it in his head. I can throw the ball anywhere. And I will. If you get open, I'm going to throw the ball. Now, we saw in this game, there was a couple guys he just missed. He threw it too late or whatever. But he made the right reads for the most part. He just was a little tardy in getting the ball to him.
So for me, I know that you may say that, hey, Stetson Bennett didn't have the greatest game of his life. He was 16 for 27, 238 yards, 2 touchdowns, QBR of 92. But when he needed to make a play, 99% of the time the dude made the play.
Yeah. And that included with his legs too. That's the.
So watching how Stetson Bennett was able to roll out of the pocket, make sound decisions, not do stupid things, like try to shovel pass a ball forward, like I watched one silly quarterback do earlier yesterday. He seems to stand in there almost like a surgeon. He's very cool. He's very calm. And when he needs to make a cut, he makes a cut. And he's not upset about it. He doesn't beat himself up if the play's not there. And he doesn't try to force something he can't do. I've seen him throw darts across the middle at, basically our receiver's ankles, because that's the only place he can throw it and it can be caught. And the receivers seem to still be able to throw it. But you know what I have not seen him do all season?
Throw an interception.
Well, but throw it behind one of our guys on a crossing route.
Oh yeah, between the hash, that crossing route, he's got that.
I can't tell you the number of times I watched Jake Fromm throw the damn ball behind somebody. And it's like, what are you doing? Do you not practice this? You know how fast this guy runs, and you know where to throw it. Throw it. And Stetson Bennett, when he throws it, it's like he throws the ball so hard across the middle that the cameraman almost can't keep up. You almost can't believe the guy caught the ball. You're like, holy crap, he caught that?
His ability to make an accurate throw while he's booting out to his right is, he's got that. You can tell he's practiced that quite a bit. And like I said, I think it comes down to the fact that he's just a pure athlete.
Yeah, he's absolutely incredible.
He's just a pure athlete.
Now
he's fun to watch.
Now I got to bring this up, and we'll get into a little bit more into the game here in a second. But do you think that the reason that Stetson Bennett was buried on the depth chart is the same? It was for the same reason that Kyle Trask was buried on the depth chart, because the coaching staff did not realize how good of a player they had.
What's interesting is every time you ever heard Kirby Smart talk about Bennett, he always praised him, and even when we watched him in I think the last spring game that we went to, I don't know if it was the last one or maybe the one before that. One of the things we talked about was how good Bennett looked throwing the ball.
Yeah, he looked very comfortable.
Yeah, he threw the ball. He was the best passer that we saw that day, and I think that was the spring game. It was 2 years ago. Justin Fields and Fromm.
Yep.
Out of those three, when we saw Stetson throw the ball, he was definitely the most accurate passer and seemed calm, and he was the most impressive one out there. We didn't really talk about it much because it was Stetson Bennett. Nobody really give him much time, but I think Kirby's been high on him as far as his athletic ability. I just think he's been so much higher on everybody else that's in front of him.
Well, I think
the fact that he's a walk-on, I think, I think Baker Mayfield was too. So, it's not really an excuse, but at the same time, when you got 5-star guys in front of you, you know how much better you actually have to be as a walk-on in order to.
Well, I think Kirby Smart continues to learn lessons about the quarterback situation that he at the school he coaches at, because I think now he's being forced. His hand's been forced. Stetson Bennett has done a fine job of saying, "Hey, look at me.
Right.
You've set me on the depth chart and didn't let me play, and I could have done better than Jake Fromm last year." That's essentially what you – can you imagine Stetson Bennett with another year? If he played at this caliber last year, how good would he be this year? I don't know. It's a really interesting topic to kind of dig into a little bit. I think that Stetson Bennett has shown everybody that he deserves a chance to play. And at this point, because he came in and he saved us in the Arkansas game, and it looks like Arkansas is going to turn out to be better than anybody anticipated, came out and done a fine job against Auburn. and then supposedly against one of the best teams in the East in Tennessee, come out and hang almost hang 44 points on the board. And who are you going to put in against Alabama now? You got no choice. Yeah. It's Stetson Bennett or bust.
Yeah, that's the great thing about this game coming up. Really, is you got that storyline. Like if Georgia can find a way to win this game, and Stetson Bennett is the guy that's in there when this game's over, I don't even think he has to have that great of a game. If he just is in there and we win the game, and he, has another game where he throws for 1 or 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, throws for 200 yards or so, and Georgia wins this game, you're going. I mean, I think they're going to start singing Stetson's praises on the national level.
I mean, if he beats Alabama, he'll probably go from being 7th on the Heisman list to maybe 4th or 5th.
Yeah, he's not putting up the crazy numbers, but I mean, his QBR is right up there. I mean, he's thrown for 600 something yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. I mean, he's put up a respectable performance. And then when you factor in what he's done with his legs and his decision making on third down, particularly, very good on third down. I think people are going to start paying attention. It's really, really, really fun thing to watch going into this game. I'm a big Georgia fan. Of course, I'm rooting for Georgia to win, but I got a secondary thing to root for. It's almost like a Rudy thing.
Yeah. Let's just hope he's not offsides.
Yeah.
So last year, people, I'm sure not everybody knows, Stetson Bennett basically played mop-up duty all last year. But Jake Fromm's stats last year just absolutely did not impress me. I was very upset overall at the offense in general. And just watching the way we played, I was like, man, why is this guy even on the field? And now I see, what we had sitting on the bench, and it's like, oh my goodness, this quarterback controversy thing is never going to end for Kirby Smart.
Well, look at what could happen here. Stetson Bennett's a junior.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if we go out, make the playoffs, or hell, even if we don't make the playoffs, if we make a good run to the SEC championship game, Stetson has a great year, even a mediocre year as far as like elite quarterbacks. Like he just has a great, a good year as a Georgia quarterback. What happens? Does he come back? Because I mean, this kid is getting, he's starting to get some praise. Like I said, we can win against Alabama. You start getting your name out there. I mean, I'm putting myself in his shoes.
Right.
If I could play another year at this caliber, I could go from insurance salesman to NFL quarterback. You know what I mean? Like this, I guarantee you the NFL was never in this kid's future, like going back to maybe 2 months ago. But and now
I keep drawing a comparison to Joe Burrow.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to pump him up too much, but I mean, nobody knew that he was going to give the production that he's given so far. Mm-hmm. So where's the ceiling? Right. How good is he? Is he benefiting from a lot of weapons around him and he's just, confident in himself enough to get it to those weapons? Or is he a great quarterback that given a season as the full starter, that we got something special here, and he goes from a walk-on. He's a better Baker Mayfield. He goes from a walk-on to actually getting drafted somewhere.
So Kevin Drummer says, "I'm sorry, Stetson is a great story and he's playing well, but realistically, he doesn't have the arm talent to be elite. He can win UGA games."
Oh, I didn't say elite. I never say elite.
He said he can win UGA games, but I think his lack of arm talent is going to show. Let's be fair. We don't realistically know 3 games in from what we've seen so far that Todd Monken has designed anything to show off his arm talent. Has he needed to? It doesn't appear so. And there have been many surgeons that have won national championships that didn't win a Heisman. I don't necessarily want a Heisman winner. Go ask Oklahoma if they would rather have Baker Mayfield as a Heisman winner, or would they rather have a national title? I think we know what the answer would be. It's almost like one of those curses where, you can either get a Heisman winner or you can get a national championship, but you can't have both.
But I think it's really, I mean, I don't know that I can comment so much on Stetson's quote unquote arm talent because so far I've seen better arm talent than Fromm, and Fromm is sitting on an NFL roster right now. And he made the cut. And I'm not saying that Stetson's better than Fromm, but as a Georgia fan that's been watching the games, Stetson this year is so far better than Fromm was the last year. Now,
Yes.
I'm not going to talk about Fromm's freshman year because Fromm did a Benjamin Button on us. I mean, he went from good to bad. You know, I mean, he did. He went from the best he's looked as a freshman, then worse as a sophomore, then worse as a junior. So, I mean, you know, I'll take Stetson Bennett this year over last year's Fromm any day of the week.
Absolutely.
And last year's Fromm got drafted and made an NFL roster. So,
all right.
I think it's fair that this kid, if he is at least as good as he looks so far throughout the rest of the season, and given another year, that he could be looked at. I know he's short. I think that's the biggest thing. I don't think it's really arm talent. I think it's his height and his overall physical build is going to hurt him. But I mean, hell, look at Breeze.
Yeah,
Drew Brees has made a great career being a small quarterback.
So let me ask you a question here. How many times last year do you think Georgia scored 35 points or more all season against SEC teams?
Not many.
Once, and only once. And it was against Tennessee, where he scored 43 points. Well, I think we can say that Stetson Bennett beat that because he also did the 44 at Tennessee instead of 43. So we'll give him credit for that. And he also did 37 on Arkansas.
In one half.
For
the most part.
Now, Georgia didn't score. Now, the other game that we played in is against Auburn, where we scored 27 points. Other than we scored 27 points against Missouri, and we scored the 43 points against Tennessee, and we scored 30 points against Vandy. You know how many points we scored last year against Auburn? 21. So far, he is definitely outpacing what Jake Fromm did all of last year. When we played Auburn last year, I don't believe they were ranked. I can't remember if they were, but I don't believe they were ranked 7.
Yeah.
So he's beat an Auburn team that was ranked. He's beat a Tennessee team that was ranked. And with the way this year is going, Arkansas should probably be ranked in the top 25. They would have been had they have not lost last night's game to the refs. So I think he's doing a pretty dad blame good job.
Yeah, I think he's doing just fine. I mean, it's easy for us to get high on Stetson Bennett because of what we've had to suffer through over the past 2 years. I'm not going to say the past 3 because Fromm's freshman year was magical. I'll give him all the credit in the world for that. But
well, I think Fromm, which, and I'm getting tired of talking about Jake Fromm.
Yeah, really.
Jake Fromm had a lot of weapons around him that made him look good, but he was never going to make anybody else look good. That's all that was ever going to be. So anyway,
yeah.
Looking at the Georgia-Tennessee game, I was very impressed with the Georgia's defense. I think everybody was. Monte Rice all over the field, Quay Walker bullying people, Azeez Ojulari, 2 sacks, and I believe
he got a strip sack, and I think he recovered the fumble.
Yeah, and he recovered a fumble. You beat me to it.
Yeah.
He strip sacks, recovers the fumble, and Garantano is standing there like somebody just stole his lunch. He has no idea what to do. And then his running mate, Channing Tindall, right there on top of him as well, 2 sacks. Georgia had 5 sacks in this game. I can't remember any games last year against an SEC opponent where we had 5 sacks. And again, this is supposedly Tennessee's supposed to have this incredible, amazing, yet toxic offensive line. So non-toxic, offensive line. Georgia went in there, absolutely had their way with them in the second half. There was nothing they could do about it. They couldn't find a guy open. They couldn't run the ball. Negative 1 yards rushing against supposedly the best offensive line in the SEC, supposedly. But, to hear everybody talk about it this morning, Tennessee is a terrible team, just like Auburn was after we beat them.
Yeah. Yeah, that negative 1 yard rushing was pretty surprising. I remember seeing that after the game when I pulled up like all the statistics and looked. I mean, it definitely felt through the game that Tennessee was not able to run, but I did not realize that it was that bad.
So if you take Garantano's minus 40 yards that he had, because Garantano had negative 40, they had a grand total of 39 yards of rushing offense total, with no negatives, just straight up rushing. 8 tries with Eric Gray, 25 yards, 3.1 yards a carry. Ty Chandler, 8 carries, 11 yards, 1.4 yards a carry, and 1 yard by Jalen Wyatt for 3 yards. There was nothing that run game. They couldn't generate anything. So I'm interested to see how that's going to pan out as the future rolls forward.
Yeah. This reminds me of, I guess it was last year, right, where Georgia didn't allow a rushing touchdown until like right at the end of the season, I guess.
Yeah, I think it was Auburn, and it was like a quarterback sneak or some garbage that they snuck in. And they still lost the game, but at the end of the day, man, the defense has not missed a lick. I mean, the 21 points is very deceptive. If you take that garbage 7 points off, and then you look at, they only allowed 6 points in Auburn. They allowed 10 points at Arkansas. You're basically saying that teams are averaging 10 points a game. 2 of those were ranked. Arkansas is better than they looked. I mean, is better than they're thought to be. So,
yeah,
who knows? That don't mean nothing if we can't win it all. All these stats are great, but I'm in it. I'm in it for the big one.
It's just going to be this game coming against Alabama. I think is just going to be a fantastic game. I don't know what the score is going to end up being, or if it's actually going to be a great football game. But the storylines here are great. You have the Alabama offense with those receivers going against Georgia's defense. You got the Stetson Bennett angle. You got Karis Jackson trying to get 100 yards a game, trying to become a 1,000-yard receiver. There's just a lot. There's a lot to look at.
I really think that Todd Monken is going to get the offensive line figured out this week. I'm sure that is a concern right now. They want to make that run game pop. But what I'm very, very happy to see is that even without a solid running game, basically one big horse to put it on, so to speak, we can get it done from the quarterback position. We spread it around well. We get plenty of people downfield. We had 5 receivers that averaged more than 13 yards per reception. So, I mean,
I think you're going to see Monken focus on the running game heavily here, because one of the things, this is going to be one of those games where, I don't think Georgia wants to get into a shootout with Alabama. I think we want to control the clock, control possession.
Yep.
It doesn't look like Alabama, from what we've seen with the Ole Miss. I know Ole Miss will throw the ball all over the field, but if we can control the clock, control possessions with running the game, get a couple of timely stops here and there, which our defense is fully capable of doing, I think we match up well in this Alabama iteration.
Yeah. Now he is going to be going up. He is going to be going up against some of the best in the country.
Oh yeah,
some guys with tons of experience. So instead of see him get all panic and just run all over the place like Jake Fromm would do, he would just panic sometimes. I think that he showed in this game that he's willing to look at the scoreboard and go, okay, we're down 14. Let's go to work. I think that he has that. And really, he only played last year and this year, but he has the mentality of like a 5-year senior. So Stetson Bennett, I mean, realistically, he could play for like 2 or 3 more years here, this
Yeah.
year and next year, so to speak. But
It's kind of what ECC is saying. I completely feel this way. It's one of the. I know it sounds like I'm really high on Stetson, but I think you got a kid, especially in the college game, the having confidence in yourself and that goes a long way. When you have physical talent, which he obviously has, he may not be Tim Tebow or anything, but when you got physical talent enough that's allowed you to walk on to UGA's football team,
and then leave and get invited back on scholarship.
Yeah, on scholarship, exactly. And then you pair that with I belong here. I should have been starting this whole time, and now you guys know that mentality. and then like you see also his teammates, man. I don't know if you've watched some of the post game interviews that they've had with him. His teammates are coming up to him, just getting in the camera. They're loving it.
Yeah,
his teammates are completely bought in.
They're happy with him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they love this kid at Pears, and so when you have those combinations, the physical talent that's good enough apparently, the confidence in yourself to go out there and get it done. I mean, he's got a swagger about him. He just does. You listen to him talk. He just doesn't seem like the moment's too big for him, and that's exciting to see. Like I said, it's definitely a breath of fresh air, as ECC says. Perfect.
All right, so I think we've about beat this horse to death. I think Tennessee fans are going to be crying in the cereal for years. Tennessee, I'm sorry. You guys are not back. The score is practically identical to what it was last year. I do think you guys played much better in the first half, but I think you're still several years away from having enough talent to compete depth-wise. You may have enough talent to compete first quarter, first half, but you're still a long way from having enough to compete 4 quarters with the likes of UGA, Alabama, Clemson, or even Florida. Now, Florida's taking a step back this year, but you guys may beat them. We'll see. I don't necessarily think so, but I think you can. Is it a possibility? Yes. Is it a certainty? I'm a little reserved. Adam Ivy says, Brett, you're torn between a heart and head pick, or are you convinced we do it in Tuscaloosa? I am. I'm guessing you're saying that you are convinced that you can do it in Tuscaloosa. With me, I have trash talked Alabama in the national championship. I have trash talked Alabama in the SEC championship. And both times I got black eyes from it. Now, yeah, we were razor thin close. I get it. Trust me, nobody feels it more than I do. But at the end of the day, do I think we do it? I certainly feel like this particular season is the best shot we've had, with the exception of the national championship run. I feel like our defense here, if we'd have had this defense whenever we played the national championship, we'd have won it no problem. We had a great defense then, but pretty much everything was on Lorenzo Carter. Yeah. But this year, I think that the talent is really spread out across the field. The defensive line is incredible. You got Richard LeCount standing back there. You've got Eric Stokes standing back there. You got a laundry list of guys that are scary to go up against. So it's kind of like pick your poison. And those guys are all over the field.
That national championship defense was kind of like, it was Lorenzo Carter and Roquan Smith. That was it.
Roquan Smith and Lorenzo Carter. Roquan Smith, obviously, but they just had to pick between staying away from those two guys. If they could get those two guys on the same side of the field, the ball went the other way every time.
Yeah.
So this particular time, I think that Kirby Smart is not going to make the same mistakes he's made in the past, because you saw it in the Tennessee game. He's going to keep his foot on the throttle. He's not going to let up. He's going to hammer. I feel like with the combination of Kirby Smart and Todd Monken, that he has coaches around him now that are experienced enough to tell him, don't do that. That's a bad idea. We need to do this. And he gives them more respect because they've been around longer, especially Todd Monken. I think that Scott Cochran brings an element to the game that they didn't have before. He's absolutely got the special teams playing lights out. I have not seen one special teams mistake. And before, I couldn't say that because when we had, what was his name? McKenzie? God, it seems like he muffed a kickoff every game. We don't see that anymore. So
the team definitely appears to be more well coached
well-rounded
this year than we've seen over the past couple of years.
I love this guy's name.
Are you gonna say it?
Hayward. Sir, what do I think about them almost blowing it in 3 straight games? I think they did blow it in 1 game there, didn't they? Didn't they lose a game? 2 games?
Yeah, Jason Crosby brings up a great point that I meant to talk about, man. Jake
Camarda.
But man, that one, I mean, was it 60? He had 60-something yard punt in that game. And I remember
63-yard punt, man.
I remember the announcer was saying, you know, you have to backpedal farther than that. You know, I mean, how do you line up against that? He lined up out there, and that ball just flew over his head. Yeah, he had no chance.
My question is why don't we have Jake Camarda kicking field goals?
It lands right out of bounds, too. I mean, he got as much as he could out of it, and it landed out of bounds with no return. I mean, he wasn't going to return it anyways because it flew over his head, but still, I mean, this is one of the best punters that I've seen in a long time.
What if you don't hear the announcer say booming? Jake Camarda didn't kick the ball.
Yeah, I think he's averaging over 50 yards a punt this all year.
I want to say his average was 54.
Yeah, 54 in that game. I think over the whole year he's averaging. He may be. I mean, he's averaging, I think, north of 50.
Yeah, and with the way that the offense is moving, it's basically you either got to get a 3 and out, and this guy just puts you inside the 10. Because if Georgia gets the ball on the 25 and this guy kicks a 50, just round it off to 50. He kicks a 50-yard punt. You're on the 25 on the other side. If Georgia gets 1 first down and moves the ball to the 35 and he kicks a 50-yard, you're standing on the 15. So he kicks the ball high enough that it allows, even though he's kicking it forever down the field, he kicks it high enough that UGA's what I call snipers are able to get down to the end of the field and recover the ball before it goes in the end zone.
Yeah.
So
or either he's putting it right on the sideline where they can't even return it. You know, he's incredible.
I think it was in the Auburn game, like their average starting field position was like the 18-yard line. Yeah. And Georgia's was like the 46th. So absolutely blowing it up, man. Love it. Well, we're starting to get in kind of deep here. It's getting close to 10 o'clock. I bet you a lot of people got to start going to bed. But what's your initial thoughts for Georgia, Alabama here?
It's like I said, I think these teams match up well. I think it's one of the best Lego piece matchups that we've had against Alabama in a while. You know, we have our great defense against what, you know, could be probably one of the best offenses in the country. At least talent-wise that we've seen so far. And, you know, I know our run defense is I guess, what everybody's kind of hanging their hat on. And we've given up some big plays in the secondary, which is where Alabama's gonna try to live with Waddle and those guys. So hopefully Monken is coaching up the secondary. Hopefully we're going to be able to show Alabama something and defend, get a couple of timely stops. So I was saying, I think look for Georgia to run the ball, do some possession control, try to keep Alabama's offense off the board or off the field, and get a couple of timely stops. And I think we can pull this one out. I feel more comfortable about this one going into it than I have over the past few years.
Yeah, I definitely feel more comfortable that this one, and in true Georgia fashion, we'll probably screw it up royally. But I've got a question for you. I understand that it was a down to the fourth quarter game for the most part for Alabama. But Najee Harris ran for 23 carries for 206 yards and 5 touchdowns. That's got to be a record somewhere. That's got to be. I mean, 5 touchdowns in one game, that's absolutely just dumb. That's a crazy stat. But my question is this. Never mind the ridiculousness of the actual action. Do you think that them running Najee Harris that much, because a lot of those were long runs, do you think that's going to make him a little sore and maybe a little tired for this game?
I'm
That's
not
a
sure. Yeah, I mean,
that's a lot, dude.
it kind of depends on how much beating up he took, but I don't know. I think everybody's going to be fired up and ready for this game. I think after this game, he might have to sit in the ice bath or something. But
He's going to be sitting in an ice bath till Wednesday.
yeah, but he's not going to have that kind of production this Saturday. I know I'm a homer with Georgia football, but that ain't happening this Saturday. They might throw for 400, 500 yards, but he ain't rushing for 5 touchdowns, 200 yards.
No. Are you ready? You ready for this one? Oh man, people do get creative, man. I'm gonna call you GLH there. GLH. Not sore, but legs tired. Yeah, I mean, think about this. I mean, I understand he's a young guy. I get it. But that's some hard running, man. When you got to sprint repeatedly like that, and it's not like it was just one quick sprint. It was like spread out over 3 or 4 hours. That's a lot. Yeah, he may be jacked up on adrenaline for that first quarter, but I've been in situations where you get that adrenaline dump, and then after that, man, your legs just get wobbly. And I mean, that's a lot of work for one guy to put in 200 yards, man. Yeah. 200 yards. It's absolutely impressive. But I'm just curious that even of Najee Harris's status of quality of player, I don't know how fresh he's going to be for next week's game. I just don't.
I want him to be 100% fresh. I don't want no excuses.
Oh no, I'm gonna tell him. I'm gonna say, yeah, you played him. It's all good. You put him on the field.
Kyle, why does the guy's name escape me now? The Auburn guy.
Oh, Carry On.
Yeah.
And Petaway
banged up. Banged up against Alabama.
Yeah, I caught it. I told you it's Carry On or Can't Carry On.
Yeah, he's banged up. Played Georgia and then Alabama, and then they tried to play him against Georgia again in the SEC championship game, and this kid was just done.
Yeah, well, it was like that's Gus Malzahn's MO, man. It's take one running back and wear all the tread off the tires in one season. And I'm sorry, it doesn't work, man. It just doesn't work.
Carry Johnson, yeah, that kid, he was a baller, though.
Oh, he was a baller. He was a baller. He
showed out.
Wasn't Cam Petaway was the other one that they tried a different year with? Oh, what was the guy from Kentucky that they tried doing it with at Kentucky? Oh God, what was his name? Bobby? Was it Bobby something?
Benny Snell.
Benny Snell, yeah, Benny Snell. Yeah, it didn't work out for him either. So that's kind of a segue into this next part here. With obviously, they're going to be looking to run the ball. If they can't run the ball, how well are they going to be able to do against with the pass? Georgia's defense is absolutely incredible. I do think that they're able to run the ball some, but I don't think they're going to run as much.
Yeah, I mean, Najee Harris will probably get his yards. I mean, he's not – hopefully we hold him for less than 100 yards. I mean, hopefully he's not rushing for 100 yards. But, I mean, I guess Georgia better hope that Alabama's not able to run the ball on them, because if they're able to run the ball on us, then, that's going to open up the pass game to Waddle and all those guys. And that's going to make for a very unfun Saturday, in my opinion. We have to make them one-dimensional, whether it be running or throwing. So if we can't do that, I don't think there's any chance for us to win. But we definitely have to win that defensive battle.
I don't think Rob F., you crack me up, man. Uncle Lou's a good guy. He really is. When you look at the way Georgia's defense is stacked, that defense, at least the defensive line, is incredible. I'm curious as to if Alabama's plan is going to be, I won't say abandon the run, but I'll say maybe focus more on the pass than on the run.
For sure.
With that being the case, is Georgia going to be using Richard LeCount to dial up pressure, or are they going to play the contained game?
Well, I mean, I don't think from what we've seen so far, it's going to be pressure. I think. I mean, I think they're going to, like I said, look for some plays to try to put Alabama in a third and long situation and dial up pressure. I mean, it's worked in every game we've played so far. I mean, it works. That's how football's played, right? I mean, it works all the time. As long as you got the guys and the muscle to get in there and cause the quarterback to be uncomfortable, he's going to make some mistakes. Sometimes he's going to burn you. Sometimes, he's going to throw picks. He's going to throw the ball away. I mean, you just look at what Maritano did,
Yeah. Well, I'm not.
Here's the Bo Nix,
And here's what I'm getting at is I'm curious as to if Georgia, Tua obviously was pretty mobile. Jalen was clearly mobile. Both of those were fairly mobile quarterbacks. Going into the fourth game of the season, Mac Jones has over 1,000 yards passing, right? He has 3 yards rushing. So he doesn't appear to be very mobile. Now, there may be some stuff where he rolls out and throws it and avoids pressure and whatnot and so forth. But only having 3 yards rushing, it doesn't appear to me that they're interested in trying to use him as a quote-unquote, dual threat or mobile quarterback.
No, I don't think so.
So
they're banking on getting the ball to those receivers.
Which is going to lead me to the next question of I wonder how much they're going to let these guys really play, because it seemed like in the Alabama Ole Miss game, they were letting those guys kind of fist fight out there on the field as far as jockeying for position.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I'm assuming Tyson Campbell is going to be against Waddle. That's going to be a good battle to see. I hope we can cut down. I don't think he got a pass interference this last game. He actually played a decent game this past week, but pass interference in two of the first, in each of the first 2 games. So that's going to be an interesting battle. I mean, Tyson Campbell come in heavily recruited, 5-star defensive back. Seeing him go against Waddle is going. I'm assuming that's the matchup we're going to see. That's going to be interesting.
Well, the interesting thing to me, at least in my opinion, is that at one point, and I understand what everybody's going to say before they ever say it. I understand that the player calibers are completely different. I get it. But Auburn essentially at one point completely abandoned the run, went straight to passing, and couldn't do anything. And they have the fastest wide receiver in all of college football, and that guy couldn't get open consistently. Even when Bo Nix would throw the ball, there was a Georgia defender right there on top of him. So I was pretty impressed.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch. I mean, the thing about Waddle, though, is his ability. I mean, his route running is incredible. That's where he gets open. And,
yep.
I mean, I'm hoping. I mean, this is the game where Monken and where Monken and these guys earn their pay, right? I mean, figure out how to get the ball in the end zone, and let's figure out how to keep them off the field.
I think this is just my opinion. I think Georgia's defense is way better. I think Georgia's offense is not quite as good. And I think when you pair those two together and you try to weigh out who has the advantage here, I kind of have to say I think Georgia has the advantage. I think because Georgia's going to be able to get more stops than Alabama's going to get. And while our offense may not be as good, I just don't believe their defense is anywhere near capable of stopping Georgia as much as Georgia's going to stop Alabama. I know their offense is incredible. I get it. But the defense that I've seen so far is, and I'm a homer. I know what everybody's going to say, but I absolutely believe this is the best Georgia defense I've ever seen.
Yeah. Like I said, Georgia matches up very well with this version of Alabama that we see. And if we can get after them and, get some stops here and there, force Mac Jones into something, into some really uncomfortable situations, some long third downs, maybe a pick here or there, or just some bad, making some bad decisions here and there. That's all we need is a couple of those, and I think we'll be all right.
If Georgia, and this now we're I'm getting off in unicorn land now. If Georgia comes out and just dominates Alabama, that puts Georgia in the #1 spot, and I don't see anybody in the rest of our season to take it away from us. If Alabama has another game like they did against Ole Miss, and they come up on the bad side of the coin and they go 2 losses, they could still end up in the SEC championship with 2 losses. But Georgia will get there, and this is just fairy tale land. Georgia will get there and lose. Let's say they lose, right? Let's just say they lose. Then you got a 2-loss SEC champion and a 1-loss SEC East title holder. Who do you put in the college football playoff? See, that gets sticky.
Yeah, this is the conversation we've had before, especially when you start entering into these Big Ten teams. They ain't played yet,
Right.
Yeah, and then the Pac-12, and what happens when all of these teams start playing, and the guys sitting there with 1-loss SEC teams.
Listen, I absolutely believe they're going to have at least 3 teams that are completely undefeated in all 3 games they play.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll see what happens. All right, guys. Well, we done rolled it over the 2-hour mark. We're past 10 o'clock. Wanted to give you guys a good follow up on the game here. Just overall, UNC is looking really good, guys. I think UNC should be a #4 or #5 team. I think Florida's fallen off. Oklahoma's no chance of getting in. Georgia's looking good. Auburn is looking better. I mean, not Auburn. Arkansas is looking better. And Tennessee, sorry about your luck, but I mean, it just is what it is, guys. Haywood says, "Old piss." Yeah, they've been called that forever. All right, guys. Anything else you want to add in, my man?
And that's it.
All right, guys. We really appreciate all you guys joining the show. Thank you so much for being here. You guys make the show. Without y'all, it's just basically a phone call between me and the mailman. Feel free to hit like, subscribe, share. Don't forget to come back this later week. We'll be doing a hate video for Alabama, and we'll be doing another live show Thursday. So we'll see you guys then. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Oh, wait a minute. Pastor Dave said, did that guy just say Georgia offense is better than Ole Miss? Wow. Yeah. It may be. We don't know yet. Have a great day. God bless. Go Dogs.